I'm Jacqueline Lauren, and this is Realign with the Divine, conversations to know and flow. From breakdown to breakthrough, we'll be discussing self-help with modern-day healers as they share both the difficulties and fulfillments of their stories of awakening. We'll examine the common themes that connect all that walk the path back to their highest selves. As we recognize our patterns, programming, and reactions, we begin to restore our natural creativity and flow. While the process is a deeply personal one, it is helpful to remember that we are not alone. We are supported on this journey. Bringing our authentic selves and our unique gifts into the world is a choice that may require a great deal of courage. No more false facades. Our masks have been removed. Follow us and listen to our latest shows on realignwiththedivine.com. Anümani Santos, MBA, modern-day shaman, motivational speaker, award-winning author, coach, and artist, enriches audiences with her powerful and transformational presence, opening hearts and inspiring minds to new possibilities, a deeper knowing of who they really are. Her greatest passion is empowering transformational leaders, entrepreneurs, healers, messengers, and conscious businesses to understand their reason for being and bring their gifts and soul's genius to the world. Anumani is based in Garnet Valley, Pennsylvania. She is the author of the international best-selling book, Unmasking Your Soul, and contributing author to the award-winning book, Pebbles in the Pond, Wave 4. To find out more about Anumani, visit www.anumanispeaks.com. Hi, I'm Jacqueline Lauren, and this is Realign with the Divine. And tonight I have the pleasure of being here with Anümani Santos, modern-day shaman. Thanks so much for having me into your home tonight. It's really wonderful to be in your presence. Anumani is just one of those people that every time I've been around her, I'm just really feeling her energy, and it just lights up a room. So thank you for having me and our listeners here for this conversation tonight.
Well, I'm honored and grateful to have you here. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
So should we jump right into this? Because I know we've both had a bit of a long day.
Sure.
I'm curious a little bit about where your name came from.
Absolutely. So I think it was about 5 years ago. I was attending it was supposed to be a writing retreat, and it was my book mentor, Christine Closer, and she's really the one who helped me birth my book, Unmasking Your Soul. And we were sitting in circle, and then she had us do a guided meditation, and we were all standing. It was about 13 women holding hands. And as she was guiding us, I just heard this voice that said, "You have had many names before, you're an ancient soul, but in this life you shall be called Anumani." And I didn't know what Anumani meant. But the next day, I hadn't said anything about what had happened. And the next day, there were 2 other women in the group, and one of them had been guided that she had to stop using her first name and start using her middle name, because that was more in alignment with the vibration she was supposed to hold. And then another woman says, I'm going to change my name to my angelic name. And so I knew I was supposed to say something about receiving that message. So I told them, I said, in the meditation yesterday, I was told that my spiritual name is Anumani and that I need to start using it. And so one of them said, "Oh, well, I feel like you need to lead us in chant." And so Christine said, "Go ahead, lead us in chant." And so we chanted my name. We did about 7 times, and it was amazing. I felt this opening within me, this just alignment of vibration and power that I had never felt before. So name carries vibration, And although I love, my mom for picking my name, Eileen, I knew in that moment that because of where I was in my journey, that it was important for me to start using the name because it was like a portal to a deeper aspect of who I was. And it was later that I found out what the name means.
What does the name mean?
It means the omniscient jewel of compassion and love.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So I'm here to help people find their own jewel, right, of coming back home to self and really discovering the jewel that you hold within your heart.
So when I first met you, you were actually doing a speaking engagement at a women's conference. And I knew that I needed to talk to you at the end of it because you were talking about bringing spirituality into the corporate world. And that is a fascinating topic to myself, having a background in the corporate world as well. So can you tell us how that came to be?
Sure. So I worked in corporate most of my life. I started my career as an electrical engineer, and then I got my MBA and started working in consulting for many years. Then ended up coming, I grew up in New Jersey, but then ended up coming to the Pennsylvania area about 15 years ago, and worked in a student loan company for about 8 years. And it was the same year when I got that job that I had my dream of awakening. And I kept working in corporate while I was surrendering to this whole process, because initially I didn't know, what my mission was, what my purpose was. And I kept surrendering to the process. And I would say in the last couple years, it's kind of been full circle because, I've been working with individual clients and also in group settings doing workshops. And I kept getting this message, you need to bring this to corporate environments. And there was a part of me that kept thinking, well, no, they're never going to accept that. And there was a part of my ego that believed I needed to check my light at the door. And the message was, no, there is no separation. You are you wherever you are. If you're in a boardroom, if you're in a taxi cab, if you're with your family. So that really was a different level of stepping in to where I was being called to stop thinking I needed to check my spirit at the door and my light at the door, and instead just be me wherever I was.
So not having a separation between really any aspect of your life anymore. So how was that received within an office setting? And what did that look like as you started to sort of come out as yourself?
Yeah, so it doesn't mean that you're going and telling everybody, oh, this is what I believe, or, talking about ascension, but it's more about being a presence and allowing the conversations to happen. And what started to naturally happen was that somebody would say to me, hey, can we talk? And then it would turn out that this person, had spiritual interests. It was like divinely orchestrated. And this happened not too long ago. I was sitting with somebody who was on the team, and he found out that I had written a book. And he's like, can we go have a cup of coffee? So we went to the cafeteria and we're talking. And we spent about 45 minutes together. And he just had all these questions and couldn't, he was like so fascinated. And 5 minutes after I left him, he comes, rushes and finds me, and he says, oh my God. He said, as soon as you left, I heard this voice said, now your soul has awakened. And he said, and I felt this chill in my body and something happened. And I said, you were just activated.
So can you explain what an activation is?
Sure. It's when your vibration shifts, and you can think of it as like a portal opening within your body, and energy is flowing to activate something that you already have within you. It could be a gift that's been waiting for you to shift into that vibration. So my experience in my own journey has been that as you shift, gifts that have been dormant then start to come, I call it coming online, naturally, because you have done the work to shift what was in the way of you moving into that particular vibration. So for this gentleman, it's like his soul was calling him forward. This was all divinely orchestrated. He sits with me. He's asking all these questions. There's an openness, right, that he's feeling because he wants to move forward. And by sitting together, it's like this energy exchange happened between us. And I'm an activator.
And I'm going to vouch for that. At the lunch that we sat for hours, I must have gotten, I don't know, between 5 and 10 activations, and it's been about a month since I've seen you. And since then, I just feel like a happier version of myself. And all of a sudden, I'm taking strides and I'm taking risks and I'm moving into things I wasn't doing before that activation had happened. So I think you've explained this brilliantly.
Thank you. And I'm that's the stuff that makes my heart sing, that it was in that moment that I realized what the divine was trying to teach me about, trying to think like that I needed to be somebody different. No, I just need to be myself and then allow the rest to take place. When the doorway opened for the conversation to happen, I wasn't skittish about it. I knew I was supposed to have the conversation with him. And that opened the doorway for him to get an activation. And now he'll come and ask me questions, and he goes, oh my God, I had this experience. Right after the activation, I think the next day, he ended up having his deceased grandfather came in to give him some guidance. So to me, that's the stuff that really makes my heart sing. And it was the opening for me to understand that I needed to bring that into this workplace and other things of teaching people how to, step more into the spirit without calling it spirit.
So you are also the author of an international best-selling book, which I have not yet had the pleasure of reading, but it is on my nightstand and it's next on my list. But can you tell us a little bit about your book? And I know that was also divinely guided and very channeled, and I know that you share a lot of yourself and your story in that book.
I do. It's called Unmasking Your Soul, a transformational journey of truth, light, and healing. And I want to explain the title and the subtitle. So the unmasking is what I do, right? The download that I got is around 12 different chambers of the soul. You can think of them as archetypes of your soul. And part of what I'm doing is painting the canvas of your soul. And everyone's soul is different. So we begin the process of unmasking what's in the way of you embodying those aspects of your soul. And there's different virtues that we're going through, like divine love, divine power. So the unmasking is really the core of what I do. And then the truth, light, and healing was given to me in a dream. And it's the journey I'm taking readers in the book. Truth is the unmasking part, where you get to answer the question, what's my big why? Why am I really here on this earth plane? What's my mission? The light piece is connecting more deeply to your soul, that relationship with what I call your inner GPS, right? The part of you that has existed across time and space and wants to guide you on the journey. And then healing is the embodiment of that. And really what I mean by that is when there's a deeper integration of the soul and the human aspect of you. And it's what, I am living and breathing now as I'm working in this organization and being asked to embody the fullness of my divine expression. So in that book, we go through these 12 chambers. And there's guided meditations, there's artwork that goes with each of the chambers, really with the purpose of helping you step into your gifts, more of who you really are, so that you can bring service into the world and really support, each other in bringing light, the shift in consciousness that we are here to collaborate together to restore love. And that's one of the keys for me, is really helping people get to that place where they can begin to really trust their own guidance and using love as a way to alchemize, right? Because that really is the ultimate transformation when you can get to that place.
Can I just ask a little bit about how that came to be in your life? How did you get to this place of being able to be there as a mentor for other people? What kind of things did you have to go through in your own awakening to really come into your full gifts?
Lots of, I have to say, I resisted a lot. So the awakening happens through a dream, and everyone's different, but in my case, dreams have always played an important part of my life. I get a lot of information in my dreams. In the dream that I had in 2003, my body was trying to give me signs, and I was resisting and not paying attention. I was having fainting spells, and the doctors couldn't find anything. But it was really a sign of my body saying, hey, we need you to wake up, right? Because it was my crown that was going to open up. So in the dream, I heard a voice at the end that said, my child, I have a mission for you. You're not going to understand what it is, but be patient, because in time it will all be revealed. That cracked open my crown. I woke up from that dream knowing, okay, I got to change my life. And the first thing, which there was signs in the dream, was leaving an unhealthy marriage that I was in. And up until that point, I had been scared to leave the marriage. But that dream just filled me with this courage. I kind of think of the spiritual warrior, which is one of my paintings. I became the spiritual warrior in that moment. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this.
You're your own advocate now.
Yeah.
And no fear.
And I said, okay, I'm going to leave this unhealthy marriage. So I started that process, and that was really difficult. And when we say yes to our soul, which that was one of those, I call them soul choice points, right? I was being given a choice. Are you going to stay in the muck that you're in, or are you going to choose to live differently and be happier? Because inside, although on the outside I looked successful and happy, I was pretending, right? It was all a mask. And I knew in that moment that if I didn't do this, I was going to get really sick. And so I started, divorce proceedings. And as I started surrendering, I remember the first book I picked up was Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love. And it's kind of full circle for me, because I had been searching for love outside of me my whole life, and discovering, no, love really begins on the inside. And it was really me learning to love myself again. And I started meeting people, and I took this meditation class, and a woman comes up to me at the end, because I still didn't know what my purpose was. And she goes, what do you do for a living? And I was doing marketing at the time. I said, I'm in marketing. She goes, do you know you're supposed to be a healer? And I received it, but I didn't know what that meant for me. So again, a lot of kind of resistance, surrender, move forward, resist, my body reacting, getting sick quite a few times. I remember a couple times getting triggered by clients that I was working on. And mind you, I was very different, because I didn't, initially I had no training for the healing that I was doing. It was all downloads that I received. I had a lot of mystical experiences. I'm a mystic at heart. And I remember being taken into an Egyptian temple, and there were 9 different Egyptian guides. And we were in some sort of archive, and they pulled a tome off the kind of what looked like a library and opened it up and said, put your hands on this very old ancient text. And I could just feel the energy opening up within me. And from there, I started, doing healing work really through their guidance.
So can I ask, before all of this began, were you coming from a religious background, or what was your spirituality like before you started receiving these downloads? Because if there wasn't one, how did this not blow your mind?
That was the part that was scary. Absolutely. I was raised Catholic. And as a child, I had these amazing flying dreams. I remember I must have been like maybe 4 years old. And I would see myself flying over the trees, and I knew that the angels were with me. And I just felt so free, and I would be laughing and twirling. And I remember one day telling a cousin of mine, I may have been around 10 years old, about these dreams and out-of-body experiences. And he said, "You're crazy." And at that moment, it's like I made a choice to shut myself off. So it's like I fell asleep again until I had this dream of awakening. And that dream just opened up a whole bunch of gifts within me that I didn't even know were there. And I didn't even recognize them initially, right? At first, the artwork started to come through, which are the paintings that I've created over the years that are like bridges to your soul, and they tell a story of what your soul needs you to know in the moment about your journey or where you may have energy, blocked. And so when the download started happening, there was a part of me that kept thinking like, oh my God, what is my family going to think? What are people going to think? And, those were parts of my ego that were still in separation, that were afraid. We all have social conditioning that's in our subconscious. Our subconscious is what rules like 95% of, our behavior, our actions. So I had to start working on all those pieces.
So what advice would you give to people that are going through a similar process right now, and maybe they don't have a support system and they are on their own and they're really searching?
Yeah, so a couple things. Part of what I did was start reading books that felt that they were in resonance of, in alignment with what I was trying to overcome or learn. But I've learned that you can't do this by yourself. So I recommend you find support communities. On Meetup, there's a whole bunch of, groups, and feeling into it to see if it's right for you, so you can be with like-minded people who are going to support you and encourage you and not judge you, because that's really important. And then get help from, whomever you feel called to, a healer, a teacher, a spiritual teacher, someone who can hold space for you where you're going to feel safe enough to begin doing this inner work that can be very deep and very scary.
I'm going to add, even finding a proper place. I didn't feel like I could really move into things until I moved onto this farm that I currently live on. So location can be important as well.
Absolutely. And I have to say, this house has been my sanctuary. I've been here, 15 years now, and it really has supported me in my evolution. People, when they walk in here, I have a healing studio here, although I also do a lot of work online, and people always comment on how, calm it feels and how the energy is beautiful. And I needed that. I needed a place that would support me through this process and this evolution.
A place to step out of the regular world and just totally be yourself.
That's right.
It really is beautiful, and there just seem like there are artifacts everywhere.
Yes, thank you.
Is some of that from traveling?
Yes. So when I was doing heavy-duty consulting, I got to travel to many places. I had Mexico was one of the places. I worked there for almost a year, traveling back and forth. And it's so funny because I was always attracted to masks, but nice masks. Like I didn't like the devil looking or ugly masks. I didn't know why, And then it turns out I was going to write this book, Unmasking Your Soul. So on my trips, I would always bring something back because I love beautiful things. And it's something I recommend to your listeners. Surround yourself with the things that make your heart sing. It could be a beautiful piece of art. It could be a flower, right? It could be certain colors in your apartment or your home. If you're in an office, maybe you bring a painting that really speaks to your heart. And in fact, I just did that. I just bought a painting that I want to put in my office because it has like 3 angels on it, and I was guided that's the piece that I needed to bring with me.
When I was still going into an office, I brought in a friend of mine was dating a painter at the time, and he had done a painting of 2 birds, and they were blue jays, and they were wearing masks of a robin. And that was what I put in my office. So as you're saying this and talking about unmasking, I'm remembering a story from my own childhood of learning a vocabulary word, and that word was facade. And I have carried that through my whole life as one of my favorite words. Something about it was really beautiful to me, but I don't think it had anything to do with beauty because I kept combining it with a false facade. So this concept of unmasking that you're talking about really resonates with me because it's probably something I've been doing my whole life of wearing this mask for the world. But in doing this show, which was very divinely guided, similarly in a dream, this came to me in a dream. So there's honestly no accident of why we're together talking today.
Yes, and I believe everything is divinely orchestrated. There are no coincidences.
So this really feels just orchestrated.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you feel like from the travels, were they an activation themselves of landing in a certain place? You know how they talk about chakra points of the world? Mm-hmm. Did that happen for you, or is there anywhere that you've been guided to travel to?
I haven't made my way to some of the places that I want to travel. Like I definitely know that I need to make it to Egypt. I need to make it to Jerusalem. There are certain points that are much more prominent in my work now that they're saying, okay, you got to take a pilgrimage or do a retreat there. So I think that's coming for me soon. But these places I travel to, like I went to Singapore, United Kingdom, and a lot of different islands. I'm definitely an island girl. Aruba and Caribbean, and my family's from Puerto Rico. That all these places where I traveled did a couple things. One, it opened my eyes to feeling more grateful for what I had and the way I was raised and the family that I had. Because even in the moments where my family didn't quite understand what I was stepping into, they were always my biggest cheerleaders.
So you felt supported by your family and all
I did.
Of this.
In fact, in writing my book, I created a group text, and I told I have 2 brothers, an older and a younger, and then I have several nieces and nephews, and they were all on the text, and I said, hey guys, I need some cheerleading. Every time I finish a chapter, I'm going to text you, and I need you guys to cheer me on. And they did that. It was amazing because it was 15 months of, I was working at the time, but every spare minute I had, I was writing. But there were moments where I had to put the book to the side because I wasn't in the right vibration, and I knew it. I needed, writing is very healing. It's a tool I use a lot, journaling. It brings up the stuff that's in the shadow, the stuff that we need. I like to say love back into being. The parts of you that are in separation that you need to bring back into wholeness. And so every time I would feel that, I was like, okay, I'm not ready to write this chapter. Let me put it to the side. I would work through that using my tools, and then I would start writing again. And having them cheer me on I can't tell you how much that meant for me.
Totally. Well, you felt supported.
Absolutely. And we all need to feel supported. I tried to do that. That was one of the lessons I learned. I tried to do things on my own, probably because I was concerned about being judged or criticized. And when I found the community, the writing retreats through my book mentor, that opened up a whole new support network for me. And I'm still, they're like family to me now, where I know I can pick up the phone and call them and I won't be judged. And we all need that, because sometimes the people around you aren't going to understand exactly what you're going through. So they may not be the right people to have the deeper conversations around maybe decisions or choices or something that you're experiencing. You were just triggered and you just need to talk it out. Somebody who's going to talk you off the ledge, or somebody who's just going to hold space for you and just love you in that moment. And sometimes the people around you may not be the right people to do that.
So what do you do when you find yourself surrounded by people that aren't in a good vibration, or a vibration that's allowing you to be the best version of yourself? How do you handle that? How do you stay in alignment when surrounded by those types of people?
So you have to make a choice, right? Like who you are going to surround yourself with. And many times what happens is the universe helps to self-select those people out of your life. Something may happen where all of a sudden you fall out of friendship with somebody, or you haven't talked to them in a while, and it's because it's for a reason. Now, this has happened to me where some of the friendships I had just kind of fell away. Like I really didn't have to do anything. The distance started to get greater and greater, and then I knew, like, oh, okay, well, I need to find other people, and the universe brings them to you, right, that really are in alignment with me, that resonate with where I am, and who will love me into that place where I'm being taken. And so sometimes you do need to make choices. There were a couple times where, I remember one time I had to fire one of my coaches because they were, initially, it was the right choice for me, but we got to a point where our beliefs were different, and there was a misalignment in where they were trying to take me and what I knew was right for me. I tell people all the time, you are your own best guru. And even when I'm working with people, I will mentor you and guide you, but I always tell people, listen to, check in with your own soul, with your own guidance to see if this is right for you. Take what works for you and leave the rest.
And that's what everybody should be doing, right?
Yeah.
So we had talked earlier a little bit about new people coming into your life and surrounding yourself with the right people. What about an actual mentor for yourself? Did you have one of those?
Initially, I did not. I I did take some meditation classes, and I started reading books. But even in reading some of the books, and we're all different, but at least in my experience, certain books are actually going to activate you. And I remember when I read Shakti Gawain's book on creative visualization, something opened up in me around using that technique to connect with my guides. And it's like the words that I was reading, I could feel the opening happened. And so I listened to that and started connecting with my guides. And then at one point, I was guided to take some classes. I took some classes with Deborah King, who's a shaman, and she's a Hay House author. And she actually, she has an interesting story. She was a lawyer and ends up getting cancer, and chooses that she wants to heal herself. Long story short, I started taking some of her workshops, like in-person workshops. She does stuff at Kripalu and in different places around the U.S. and even internationally now. And I did that for about a year and a half, and at one point it did not feel in resonance anymore. And I can tell you that I feel that one of the issues in the spiritual industry and in other industries is that some people try to push a specific framework or a way of being onto you and say you got to do it this way, but yet maybe for your soul that's not the right way.
Yeah. How would you say you know when something is right for you or not? What is your process to understand when something resonates? I know for some people it's very physical. What is yours like?
Yeah, mine's very physical as well. So that's one of the things you have to investigate. One is, how do you receive energy in your body? Because there, you can be clairaudient where you're receiving it through a message and a voice, and you're actually hearing a voice, or claircognizance. That's one of my main ones. Is when something just drops into your body and you just know it. You don't know how you know it, but you know it. An example is the phone rings and you just know who's calling. Or it could be clairsentience where you feel it in your body. Clairvoyance is when you get visions. So I started paying attention to the energy in my body, and what I discovered is that for me, a yes, something's in alignment, is I get this rush of energy coming through my head into my heart. That's a yes. A no is down in my stomach, is like, ooh, this feels yucky. Something's not right here. That's how I feel it. Now, everyone's different. I mean, I do this exercise with my clients, and I have them find their yes and no. And there's actually a maybe. My maybe is in front of my heart, and a maybe is perhaps something that maybe it's not the right timing yet. So it's still a maybe, because maybe it'll turn into a yes in the future, or maybe it's going to turn into a full no, because at some point you realize, oh yeah, this isn't for me, or something changes that makes it not right for you. So discovering where in your body your yes and your no is a really good way to be able to know what's in alignment and what's not in alignment.
And to really start trusting yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
To know when to move, when to act, when to say no.
Yeah. So for me, it kind of feels, some people call it goosebumps, God bumps. That's what I get, like the chills, like coming through my head into my heart. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's confirmation.
That's exactly how I am. It's chills down my arms, knowing when I'm in the right place. I feel that, or just having a conversation that really feels in resonance.
Yeah, and you can practice, it's the awareness, right? Just even if you're having a conversation with somebody, pay attention to how your body feels when you're interacting with that person. How do they make you feel? And you start paying attention to that, and those are always clues.
I'm going to say one thing I noticed that was really strange and foreign to me was that when I was dealing with these sort of type A personalities, I would literally have this pain that would come down my whole arm. And I've been trying to make sense of that for a long time. And now I just kind of say, maybe there's a part of you that's a bit like that. And it brings something up in me that's making me, pay attention and maybe chill out a little. Maybe I'm being a little too intense at that moment also. I'm not sure exactly. I'll have to ask more about that.
But that's great, because that's the awareness we're talking about. You're paying attention, and the body is so intelligent and so resilient that if we paid a little bit more attention, we would actually get a lot more clues about what's going on. I even tell my clients, let's say you have a pain in your knee, start talking to your knee, right? And ask it, what are you trying to tell me? Now, Louise Hay did a whole amazing body of work around the meaning of physical pain in different parts of your body, but it really is a way to start practicing getting in tune with what your body's trying to tell you. Because it speaks to us all the time. It's just that we tend to ignore it.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of living in our heads
right.
rather than our bodies.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with maybe the type of environment we're in, the work we're doing, social media, just external pressures are keeping us more in our heads than in our bodies.
Yeah, I was, in fact, recently I found a I did a soul reading with a gentleman, which, feels like an amazing spiritual mentor for me. His name is Stuart Pierce, and I'm always drawn to like oracle cards, and he created a deck called the Archangels of Atlantis, and his background was acting, so it's fascinating to as he talks about like the people that he's worked with. And he said to me, he says, in Shakespearean times, they still believed in the universe. And he said, then the machines came. It made me think of the movie The Matrix that I love so much, of the machines coming in. But what he meant was the noise of the world. So all of this noise keeps us from that deeper connection to the universe, which people felt long ago because there wasn't all this, industrialization. They were going out in nature a lot more, which is one of the ways I like to renew myself. When it's cold, I have to find other ways to do that. But when he talked about that analogy, I said, yeah, that makes so much sense, right? That has caused us to be so much more in our heads because there's so much noise around us. And the work that we're doing is to get back into the heart space.
And now we're combating all these other frequencies.
Yes.
That we're being bombarded with basically everywhere that we go.
Yeah, absolutely. The computers, Wi-Fi, all of that interferes with, you being able to connect to that vibration. So it requires us, I carry crystals on my body. I wear an EMF pendant. I try to do all those things because I'm very sensitive to energy.
Are you sleeping with something under you or in the room?
I have a whole sleeping ritual. So I have crystals in my room as well, not on my bed, but underneath the bed. I do it as I'm guided. And then I also, I have a diffuser. And so I got this oil it's called Good Night Sleep. And that's part of my ritual every night. I will do some meditation. And for me, the sense of smell, really, there's some connection there to ancient times for me. I know that helps me to fall asleep and to remain asleep, for longer periods.
It sort of helps you transition from one dimension into another.
Absolutely. That's a really good way of explaining it. Yep. And so sleep is really important for all of us. And, sometimes you'll have a dream or you'll have a download. Sometimes I have to tell my guys, like, okay, I'm trying to sleep. Don't, like, right now is not a good time.
Yeah. You know what that's like. One other thing I'd like to touch on before I let you go tonight. Can you talk a bit about manifestation and creating your reality?
Sure. So let's see how it's multifaceted. So part of the work, I have a workshop that I did, which is called Unmasking the Alchemist Within You. And in that workshop, I teach about manifestation. One of the things we get into is speaking things into being, feeling things into being. There's a body of work by Greg Braden that talks about that really there are just two feelings, love or fear. But there are many emotions that are coming down from your lower chakras, and then there are thoughts coming from your ego, conscious mind. And those, our goal is to bring those together in the heart space, but really using love as a guiding force and not fear. So when we're trying to manifest something, one is everything begins with a thought, right? And we're connected to all that is. So whatever thoughts you're thinking, right, are going out into the universe. So you want to make sure you're choosing the right thoughts. Part of building and practicing awareness is that you then become more aware of the thoughts you're having.
Because it's those thoughts that are often running your life very unconsciously.
Absolutely. And people call them different things, ego personalities, inner critics. It's all the same thing. Shadow, right? It's the parts of your consciousness that have been separated out from unity, oneness, union with God, source, creator, universe. And those thoughts will try to run your life and control you. So the awareness is really important, and especially with manifestation. So paying attention to your thoughts. The other thing is that you need to believe that whatever you want is possible. And one of the exercises I do with my clients is to start rating those things and asking the questions. Do you believe it's possible from 1 to 10? Do you feel worthy of receiving that from 1 to 10? Do you feel you have the capabilities to achieve what you want? And you start uncovering where you might have limiting beliefs, where there may be some social conditioning in your subconscious that's holding you back, because belief is a key ingredient in alchemy and manifestation. If you don't believe that something's possible, guess what? It ain't going to happen.
It's not possible.
Yeah. So thoughts, even your words. So I work a lot with Joshua, with Jesus, and the whole Christed beings. And one of the things, and I have a painting called The Portrait of Jesus, one of the things he always reminds me of is that we all have the ability to speak things into being. That's part of what I teach in this workshop that I do. And so pay attention to what you are saying, because just like your thoughts, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say something is not going to happen for you, it ain't going to happen. So start paying attention to what you're saying, start paying attention to what your thoughts are. And then you want to be able to be non-attached to what you want. So if you were going to do a process on this, right, you might visualize hey, I want to manifest this great new job for myself. And one way you could do that is, because visualization is a way to seed, what I like to, you're planting the seeds by visualizing it. This is why people tell you to stand in front of the mirror and start imagining what it is that you want to become. If you want to become a speaker, you're imagining yourself in front of an audience speaking and really doing well, so that you are embodying that. It's the same concept as affirmations. Affirmations start to reprogram your subconscious. So you want to marry all those things. So if I was trying to visualize a great new job right now, I might, begin to, you could either do it sitting down and start visualizing, in your head with your eyes closed, this is the job I want to create, without putting the parameters of exactly, because the universe will figure that out. But think about how it makes you feel, because feelings are the language of the universe. That's how the universe communicates. That's what it understands. It understands feelings. So you're visualizing this great job that you want to have, and now you're thinking about, okay, man, if I had this job, I would be so happy and I would be feeling all, and so you're imagining, and now you start to bring those feelings into your body.
You're embodying that you already have this job.
Yes. And so you're using all of that, your thoughts, your feelings, the spoken word. I like to speak it out into the universe, using all of the natural gifts that we have to manifest that. And then you can imagine that you're actually putting it in a pink bubble and giving it to the universe, and then we have to detach from it. Because if we become too attached to the outcome or exactly how it's going to happen, then you're actually causing a delay for it to manifest. So that would be my recommendation for people who want to get started in beginning to manifest.
So I feel like the next time we do a recording, it's supposed to be a guided visualization. I think that would be amazing.
I would love to do that.
Awesome. So is there a website that we can reach you on?
Yes. So if you go to www.anmani, Anumani, Anumani speaks, speaks.com. That's my website, and there's different links on there. So if you're an individual who wants to learn more about the healing packages and coaches I have, you go to the individuals. There's a little picture, and you click on that. And then in the center, there's for communities. So that's for people who want me to come and speak at their community. And then there's a corporate one where I do corporate speaking. And you can also sign up for a free consultation. So if something is resonating with you in this conversation, feel free to set up an appointment with me to do a free consultation.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think this was great, and I would love to do it again with you. So.
Absolutely. Thank you again for the opportunity. And I just want to remind the listeners that you are love and you are loved.
Namaste. Thank you for listening to Realign with the Divine and helping us create a more beautiful and conscious world. Visit us on the web at www.realignwiththedivine.com and follow us on Instagram at jacqueline.lauren.design. Please subscribe to Realign with the Divine on iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Many thanks. Namaste.